Good morning, folks. Today we're going to be making waffles using a 1935 waffle iron made by the Samson Company. And as you can clearly see, this waffle iron has already been seasoned. But if it hadn't been, the very first step we would be doing would be to coat the waffle iron with oil, and like vegetable oil, and then baking a batch of waffles in it. But we're not doing that since it's already seasoned. It was actually seasoned before World War II. Awesome! So, what do we need to make waffles? If you've never made them before, and I haven't, believe it or not, I've never had homemade waffles. Nor have I made them. We're going to need the following ingredients. Good waffles start off with a good waffle mix. You can either make your own, in which case none of this applies to you, or you can buy your own pre-made waffle mix. You can choose one of the lower end brands like Bisquick, Aunt Jemima, etc. You can also try one of the organic higher quality mixes. Now this actually cost about $4 for 26 ounces or 1 pound, made by the Bob's Red Mill Company. I bought this because it contains no enriched flour. It's all whole grain, better for you, and just like they would have made back in 1935, closer to those ingredients, or that level of quality. These are buttermilk waffles. And if you're wondering what the difference between Belgian waffles and traditional waffles, I believe Belgian waffles have more leavening agents in them to make them thicker and to fill up the griddles of a Belgian waffle maker. You're also going to want Pam. This is extremely important. This is a trick that I learned from Retro Chad when I saw his video on making waffles. He used a mid-1950s, I believe, General Electric twin waffle iron, and he liberally sprayed the waffle griddles with Pam to prevent the waffles from sticking. This is extremely important. You're also going to want milk. I use 1% with everything because it's just better for you than whole milk. But of course the fat content will affect the taste. I imagine my waffles will be a little less creamy tasting, but that's okay. I'd rather not have the extra calories and fat. You're also going to want, and according to the instructions in this particular mix, you're going to want 2 eggs. The instructions for making waffles do vary from mix to mix, but you'll notice there are differences between the pancake instructions and the waffle instructions. So it's not exactly the same. With pancakes, typically you just add water and that's it. But actually this is a little bit different than that. This is, they still want 1 egg, 1 tablespoon of oil, and 3/4 cup cold milk. On the waffle instructions, it's 2 eggs, 2 tablespoons of oil, and 3/4 of a cup of milk. But for the most part, it's about the same. No, it's not the same. Same but different. Okay, well, let's get mixing. We're going to get a large mixing bowl, and I'm going to measure out 2 tablespoons of vegetable oil. And I don't actually have vegetable oil. I forgot to get some. What I do have is, and don't laugh, but I have olive oil. I have actually used it for baking before, and nobody noticed the difference. I'll tell you a story. I baked a cake because we kind of share off the pastry baking at work, like for parties and such, and it was my turn to make a cake. So I made a nice cake for a retirement, and one of my coworkers was retiring, and all I had was olive oil. So I said, screw it, let's see what happens. As people were enjoying the cake and saying how great it was, I said, oh, by the way, this is what I used. Their faces dropped like, what? Anyway, this is extra light oil. If you're using olive oil like I did, don't use the dark oil. That's where the heavy flavor comes in. You can use the light oil. It does work. It's not the best, but it works. And here we are. So let's see what happens. So the first thing we must do is coat the iron liberally with Pam. Let me turn the camera so I can see what I'm doing. There we go. So what we're going to do is we're going to open up the waffle iron while it's still cold. And we're going to go ahead and spray it down with Pam. You can also use vegetable oil, just brush it on. It's okay if you get it on the iron itself. It's not that bad. Alright, so now we're going to preheat the iron. And we're going to spray it again after we preheat the iron. So just let that sit right there for a little while. And get out our medium mixing bowl. The first thing we need to do is crack our 2 eggs. We're going to just throw those in there. Make sure you don't get any shells in there. We don't want crunchy waffles, do we? Okay. Now we're going to take our waffle mix, measure out 1 cup exactly, using a liquid measure cup. I mean a dry measure cup. I have misplaced my 1 cup, so I'm going to use my half cup and just adjust as necessary. I'm going to use my scissors to cut a spout into the mix bag. Like so. And I'm going to measure out 1 level cup. That's right. It's okay if you go over it just by a little bit. I mean, you don't have to be exact. You'll notice that when people typically cook, they don't do exact measurements on anything. Just really a guideline. Unless you're making plutonium, or you can't make plutonium, but unless you're making something, you know, chemically reactive. We're going to put this aside for later. I'm going to actually repackage that in a resealable container. So there's our mix. We've got our eggs. We're going to go ahead and drop the eggs in. And when we blend them together, the egg yolks will smash, so it's not a big deal if we do that first. I'm going to move the camera just a little bit. There we go. The ingredients called for 2 tablespoons of oil. It didn't specify all over vegetable, but we know they mean vegetable oils, or corn oil, or peanut oil. That's okay, because we don't do things right around here. We're going to use good old-fashioned vegetable oil because, well, that's all I got. There we go. The next thing we need is 3/4 of a cup of ice cold milk. I'm using Hood milk because it's farmed locally. Well, Massachusetts is local, so I guess, right? Anyway, Now, some of you might be wondering what the difference between a liquid measure and a dry measure is. The truth is, they both hold the same amount of fluid, but a liquid measuring cup gives you, at its highest point, 1 cup, it gives you about maybe half an inch of splash room, and it has a spout. You can use them. I use this for dry stuff all the time. It does work, but you can't get a level measure out of a container like this. That's what the real difference is. And goes the milk. Okay. Make sure I got all my ingredients in there. Then you mix it up. Wait for the waffle iron to heat to its optimum temperature. We're going to then spray it yet again with Pam. And I can find my wire whisk. There it is. I'm going to just measure that, or mix this up until it's nice and smooth. I could have done this more gracefully, but there we go. You could use your electric mixer at this point, but it's kind of a waste. It's not really a whole lot of stuff here, so. Actually, smells pretty good. While I'm doing this, I'm going to go ahead and throw some sausages on the stove. Because after all, this is breakfast. So far, I'm looking at the timer on the camera, and we're only 7 minutes into this. It's not too bad. If I were making it from scratch, you'd be looking at like 15 minutes of prep time or so. But because we're using a pre-mixed waffle mix, not so much. Now, this looks like it'll make about maybe 3 or 4 waffles. Or 1 Belgian waffle, if it had enough leavening in it. So I'm going to let that sit for a minute. I'm going to pause the camera. I'm going to throw my sausages on, and then we're going to go ahead and make some waffles. Okay, we got our sausages on the stove. Our iron is smoking hot, and our batter's mixed. So, what we're going to do now is we're going to open up the iron, spray it again with Pam, and I move some of this stuff out of the way. Alright. Try to move the camera here. There we go. Yummy. I think she's plenty greased, don't you think? Alright. So we've got our batter. Now, if your mixing bowl does not have a spout, you've done the wrong thing. You've used the wrong kind of bowl, because you're going to want a spout for this kind of work. At this point, you could probably transfer it to a bowl that does have a spout, or not. Okay. Alright, we've got our waffle iron nice and smoking hot. We've got sausages on the stove. Things are looking good. We've got our batter right here, and we're going to go ahead and pour it into the iron. Now, this is the first time I've ever done this, so you're kind of learning as I go along, aren't you? Alright, so I'm going to try to angle this so you can see the stuff pour in. You want enough of that in there to... I think you don't want to quite fill it, because when you close the top grid... Actually, we're going to put a little more in there. Now, when Homer Simpson made his waffles, he used way too much batter. We're not going to make that mistake, are we? think you want to just about fill it, because when this starts to expand, it'll expand into the top grill. I'm gonna lower the temperature down to like medium, so the iron's gonna shut off for a few minutes. I realized I had it all the way up. And we're going to periodically check this to make sure that it's cooking correctly. It is okay to open it occasionally. So. Now, it's only been about a few seconds, so let's take a look. Oh, they are cooking. Absolutely cooking. That's good news. I'm going to leave this camera on in real time so that way you can actually see it do its thing. Oh wow, those are looking good. Always a good idea to put a plate handy. Before we put our next waffle in, we're going to use Pam yet again and recoat the griddles. You know, it's weird to think that this iron could have been used. The last time it could have been used was during World War II. And that's entirely possible. Okay, I think that is done. Let's see how it came out. Oh yes, perfect release. Okay, there we go. Let's put our next one in. Quick, quick, quick. A perfect waffle. You'll see it in a minute. Try to fill up that iron. There we go. Perfect golden brown. Look at that. Now that is a waffle. While I make my second waffle, I'm tasting the first one. Very good. I figured that was kind of a practice waffle because it didn't come out exactly as I wanted it to. As you can see, I've got holes in it. Very, very flavorful. I'm just eating it dry like this, you know. You can tell they're whole grain. They have that whole grain flavor to them. Okay. I think this one's done. Yeah. Okay. There's that one. Let's get another one in there. I'm going to try a little more batter this time. Let's try to fill that iron almost completely because these are coming out with a lot of holes in them. Let's give that a shot. While we're waiting for this waffle to be made, I'm going to go ahead and slice up some strawberries. Give it a good inspection. A little longer. Okay. Sausage is ready. The strawberries are ready. Waffles are just about ready. Another perfect waffle. And we have a little batter left. Let's see how much we can get out of this one. Rubber scraper. Okay, well, we're not going to get a very good waffle out of this, but at least we tried. When serving waffles, it's always good to top them with something. You can use maple syrup, you can use whipped cream, you can use strawberries, etc. Their possibilities are just about endless. I'm going to be using some Cabot whipped cream, liberally shaken. Just like so. We're going to just like that. And I'm going to use the fork to kind of spread that around a little bit. Just like so. Yummy. And sliced strawberries. Notice we didn't use any syrup. We just used the whipped cream and strawberries. Syrup would be a little overkill. But don't worry, I have plans for the syrup. It's great with sausages, actually. So here we go, we're going to stick some sausages in there. Here we go. Nice. How's our waffle doing? Ooh, pretty much done. Actually, this one started scorching. You can see that. Alright, well, there we go. Last one. I'll stick that one aside. Anyway, so that concludes this video. I hope you've enjoyed. And that thing is hot. To store the iron, we're going to just clean it down. We're not going to bother cleaning the grills because there's nothing to clean off. And we're going to go ahead and wipe it down with a clean cloth, maybe some Windex, and put it away. And that's it. Bon appetit.